Welcome to Life, Lafter, Divorce, episode 24. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend.
And we are here with another episode and other awesome things to look forward to.
So if you guys are listening out there, will you please rate, review, and subscribe our podcast on either iTunes or
Stitcher.
And please contact us and let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, tell us what your thoughts are. Tell us what topics you'd like to hear about. Yeah, tell us about that. And, you know, we have a blog coming out in the coming weeks. And tell us what you want to hear about in the blog, you know? Are
you blogging? And
I'm going to be blogging.
And they can make comments on your blog?
They will be able to make comments on the blog.
Yeah, that's fancy.
So that's happening. We're rolling that out. We got to make some new adjustments to the website.
But if you don't want to send us an email, you can definitely follow us on Instagram.
Yep. Or
at
Instagram, Life, Laughter, Divorce.
And then, or Twitter.
Laughter, Divorce.
Or Facebook.
Life, Laughter, Divorce.
So there are multiple ways to get in contact with us.
Oh my God. It just never ends.
So follow us and let us know what you think.
Creep on our pages. We don't mind at all. We don't. You know, what was I going to tell you?
You were going to ask about me not being married.
Right. Yeah. What's that deal about? Chop, chop. What are you waiting for, mister?
No, I'm good now.
No?
When you're in your 20s, everyone's like, you got to get married, you got to put the ring on it and do that.
But you didn't want to do that?
It's not that I don't want to get married. It's just I don't know. I'm not in any rush to do it.
Apparently not. You are not, because you're getting up there, mister.
Yeah, thank you. Not as old as you.
Well, I am older, and I just had a birthday.
Yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. And everybody should know, episode 23 with Katie Clark of Sync.com, of Sync Matchmaking. She was with us last week, and I think she did a little nice job inspiring our date night this week. Because the boyfriend actually sent me flowers and took me out, made surprise dinner reservations and everything. Pretty nice, right? Did you feel a little inspired by our matchmaking
didn't cross
episode?
my mind.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
No,
I have to say,
we learned a lot from her interview, and yes.
It was a very awesome weekend, and it was we had a lot of fun. I even wore a dress and heels.
Yeah.
You're trying not to laugh at me. No, it was really fun, and I couldn't help but think of last week's episode when we were out, because I was like, you know what, we were putting into motion, like a lot of times when we have a guest on, like I tried to kind of follow up and implement some of the things. Do you find that you do that, boyfriend? You do?
Yeah, not all the time. Sometimes
I think you kind of do. I can see the wheels turning. Maybe subconsciously.
Just with everybody that you come in contact with, you try to learn something from them. So yeah, we try to learn from these amazing people that come on and share their experiences with us. So yeah, maybe not directly, but I think they're in my head and indirectly those morals or those skills that you learn from those other indivials creep into your own life.
Yeah.
See, using that word creep a lot today.
I know, creep is the theme. No, I actually have been doing a couple of things. In fact, I will be blogging on some of those things that I've been trying to put into practice from some of our guests. So,
and when will we see this blog?
I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks
that
you guys will be seeing something out there. And also, we have a reviewer of the blog, Mom Anonymous.
Yes.
Yeah, another anonymous. You notice everybody around me wants to remain anonymous. I'm starting to get a complex. So the blog should be going up on the website, making some changes to the website, so that's exciting. And what else is exciting? This episode, because this episode we're talking about not getting married and divorced. And, there's something about that, because you have not been married and not been divorced.
Those sort of go hand in hand.
Right.
But yes.
Yes.
So when...
Tell us about that, boyfriend. How's that working out for you?
Well, I'm dating you.
Well, this is true. But do you ever like worry that you're never going to get married?
No.
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 Okay.
I got women fall at my feet all the time. No. No, but no, it's just something that I haven't put a lot of time or effort into.
Mhm.
I had a few relationships early on that may have went down that pathway, but ended in a great ball of fire. So yeah, just sort of put my head down and get my work done, and that's life.
And then here you are.
And here
But
I am.
You've never had any problem dating women who are divorced, obviously.
No, I don't discriminate in my dating habits.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I've often wondered about.
Well, let me ask you this. But you when you date somebody, you just want to. It's new. It's something you want to experience and something you want to find. It's like I don't know. That's what you get those little butterflies for, and you're interested, and you want to find something new. So why would you discriminate? Because you just want to find something new about something.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think, something new about dating is always exciting, right? The getting to know you phase, and where it's kind of like out of a movie and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, but where it's you don't know where it's going. So
No.
I think can be fun at times.
And then
too.
you find out where it's going, and you're like, oh, I gotta run away.
Well, that's when you learn to jump ship.
Yeah. Well, I am really excited about today's guest because our guest today is, like I said, he's never been married, obviously never been divorced. But I happened to be creeping on his Facebook page the other day, or it was in my newsfeed. And he mentioned that he has rarely ever gone out on a fourth date with somebody, but yet he thinks about divorce a lot. So
that's weird.
That caught my attention. No, it's not. I think that maybe depending on someone's experience and stuff with relationships or divorce in their life, being impacted by either parents of divorce or something like that, it can have an effect.
That's true.
And you figure half the population is divorced. I mean, it's something to actually consider, right? Yeah. So anyway, boyfriend's just looking at me like,
Well, I'm going through the numbers. It's half the people who have been married or have been divorced, not half the population.
Well, half the married population has been divorced. Like how I switch those things around. It's called statistics. So our guest today is a good friend of mine from New York. He's a stand-up comic, and he's a host of his very own podcast. Dennis has a podcast. So you got it right. His name is Dennis Holden of New York City, host of Dennis Has a Podcast. And not only does he have one, he has over 526 episodes up on iTunes. I have had the privilege of being a guest twice in the course of the past few years. And now he's a guest on Life, Lafter, Divorce. And if you're curious and you want to check him out, by all means do so at Dennis Has a Podcast on iTunes. Because he talks with new friends and old, highlighting the talented people of New York City while also talking about what matters most: sports, comedy, music, movies, TV, theater, fun news stories, professional wrestling, and divorce, like today. So without further ado, Mr. Dennis Holden. Dennis, welcome to Life, Laughter, Divorce podcast.
Thank you for having me, Leanne.
You're very welcome. This is exciting. I haven't spoken with you in quite some time.
It's been a little bit, yeah.
It has. And I know you've been doing really exciting things with your podcast because obviously we're friends on Facebook.
Yeah, we're trying. I mean, I'm getting back in the groove. I was slowing down for a little bit there. Life happens, but really getting back into it and, pushing past 520 some odd episodes in 5.5 years and, building friendships. And that's how I know you. It's a small world.
I know. I can't believe you've done over 500 episodes. That's incredible. That's a long time.
Yeah, I have to realize that sometimes myself, but I'm kind of in a new phase trying to expand and do some different things. But I've been doing these stats, and we've had over 300 people on the show, and I think with almost anything else, I'm as proud of that because that's a lot of people. And for like a somewhat introverted extrovert, I'm kind of proud of that because I'm not the best at meeting people, and the show's allowed me to kind of do that sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, 5 years, that's like as long as both my marriages put together. So there is that. That's an accomplishment. But over 300 people, that's like having 300 something dates in 5 years.
I realized that at some point, I should have done like a log of all the first dates I've been on, which I never did because that would be an amazing book to do at some point. So thankfully, I have a log of all the episodes I've done.
Well, I think that is good. And I wanted to tell you, like one of the reasons I reached out is the other day you had the most hilarious post on your Facebook wall, which was about you've been on a few dates over the past couple of years, but you think about divorce all the time.
Constantly. I have not been on a fourth date in 2 years.
Really?
And no, I have not. I was in a relationship for a couple of months in 2015. We double ghosted each other after like 4 months. Neither of us texted the other person again, which is super weird. And since then, a bunch of first dates, a couple of second dates, but nothing meaningful.
That's amazing. So how do you double ghost somebody? Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, how do you know if you weren't ghosted and you just reacted to their ghosting, or did you like? What?
Honestly, I don't. I wish I remembered more about it. I'm always someone who, I have one foot out the door in relationships because my biggest fear is that you overcommit and it's not reciprocated. So I always kind of have one foot out the door. So we were going out for a couple of months, and she was a really nice person, but we just never. I don't think we were ever on the same like wavelength, and like her birthday was coming up, and like we weren't hanging out as much because it was the summer and she had work and I had work or whatever. And I think I don't know who sent the last text, but like a day became two, a two became three, and I'm like, I'm not going to send another text. I'm not going to do that. And then after like 2 weeks, I guess I'm like, guess I'm not in a relationship anymore. I don't know. Yeah, adulthood.
It's interesting. The thing about ghosting is one of my brothers would always say, the adult thing to do is if you're not interested, just stop calling. Like, we didn't think of it as a ghosting thing. He's like, why would you continue to have a conversation with somebody if it wasn't going anywhere? And I always was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. I don't know where the line is. My question is where the line, because like if you go out on one date, and I don't know if you're under any responsibility to text again if you're not interested on either end. But what about 2 dates? What about 3 dates? What about a month? What about a couple of months? What if you are intimate? What is the line of demarcation? I don't know what it is. So I've been on both sides of it, and on both ends of it, both saying something and not saying something. And there's no right answer because all of it is brutal.
Yeah, dating is rough. And the boyfriend and I, we do, the boyfriend, my co-host, we just did an interview with one of our guests a week ago, and she's a matchmaker. And yes, and which was fascinating to both of us because that's something we had never considered. And now that we've met her, we're like, yeah, if we were ever single again, like that's totally the route we would take. But it's interesting because one of her things is you should always give a person 3 dates because in the first date, you're kind of wrapped up in yourself and you're really not paying that much attention. And having 2 other dates to follow up on, you kind of get to see someone in more of a natural habitat, kind of like the zoo. But you kind of get a better feel for somebody than you do on that initial first date, which I thought was really interesting because I would have been like the opposite, right? Clearly, I've been doing everything wrong.
Well, I mean, I think I think you could not know immediately. You can know that this is not the person immediately, but you're not going to know if they are the person immediately.
Yeah.
So I've been in situations where I remember a relationship. A relationship where it I stayed in a relationship for 6 months because it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was fine. It was fine. There was no reason to get out. There was no exit off the turnpike. And then 6 months later, she left town for a job, and I'm like, okay, that was the thing that happened. But was it a good thing? Was I happy? I don't know. So I'm looking for like pie in the sky. But that's not all real. That's not always realistic either.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you're always thinking about divorce? Where does this come from?
Well, I think for me, it's a not being good enough piece, because, if you're going to be in a relationship and have this person be your partner, if you're going to be married to somebody, if you're going to be in a serious relationship with someone, you both have to turn your keys. And the idea of someone at some point just being like forever is not good enough anymore. Like that, I don't know how. You've done it twice, so it is what it is. But I don't know how I would come back from that. I feel like that would be like a really tough thing to come back from.
It is. It can be, for sure. I mean, I definitely know for a fact that you can come back from it. I have several times, but is it as easy as coming back from just dating someone or having a relationship or even just living with somebody? I think it's so much easier to turn those around and come back from those than it is a marriage, because with a marriage, there's so much invested. But I find it, because you haven't been married, right?
No.
Now, have your parents stayed married?
My folks, my mother and father separated when I was like 2. So I was like way too young to remember that. And they had a good relationship. My mother and stepfather have been together for over 20 years now, and they have a good relationship. And I'm surrounded by great relationships. But like the thing that I worry about so much is that if you're married, think about this for a second. If you're married and you get divorced, all right, oh, I'm getting over a relationship. That's awful. I have to find a new place to live. That's awful. And then like my dog is not with me anymore. That's awful. Like everything happens at once. And that is just like a snowballing effect that is just like, even when I just think about it, I just get, debilitated.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you make a good point, because with marriage, you kind of have now put all of your eggs in one basket. Right.
Yeah. And I've never gotten to the point with anybody to be like, this is the person that I want to be around all the time. Not every moment of every day, because that's insanity. But like, this is the person I want to come home to. This is the person that I want to wake up to. This is the person that, is going to be, and maybe my concept of marriage isn't, correct. And it very well might not be. But the idea of that this person is the summation of all of my parts, is incredibly difficult to find. So I don't know how people, I have people in my life that just got married at like 25, and I think back to when I was 25, and I'm like, I don't think I made one right decision at 25. So I don't know how they can make a life decision at that point.
Yeah, well, I made a couple of them by the time I was 25. I was married and divorced by 25. So to that point, I think back and to now, it's so long ago because I'm so old, but you're right. Like, I think I hadn't even lived life yet. I had just finished college, and which is nice, but that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things.
No, I mean, I'm 33, and I still feel like I have a lot of life to live. And listen, I'm not young, but I'm also not old. I'm in like a at 30s the kind of phase. And I had just had a couple of friends of mine that got married. They're both 40, and their first marriage for both of them. And that was great to see, because like I feel like you had the good, you had the bad. I feel like that's the facts of life theme. But I like the idea of, what? I've kind of been around a little bit. I've seen some really great things. I've seen some really difficult things. And now I know. Now I can make that decision. And, I understand, at this point in my life, maybe I'll meet someone who's 25. Maybe I'll meet someone who's 45. I don't know. But in my mid-30s, I'm like, you know what? Now I'm not thinking about, kids. I'm not thinking about all that kind of stuff. I just want to meet a person that will, I want the sum of our parts to be better than our individual parts. I want to fill in each other's metaphorical, holes. So that's kind of what I'm looking, and I just want someone to laugh with. So I'm trying to find all that, and I don't know. I going back to, I think when you know, you know, and if it's not the right person, it's not the right person.
Yeah. Yeah. I've known a couple of times, and then I turned out I didn't know at all. Because I never stepped into a marriage thinking, oh, this is probably going to end, And it's interesting because to hear you talk, because I always thought, okay, so when I met somebody and then I got married and we didn't live together first, and that didn't work out, and he was my first real boyfriend and everything. And then the next guy I married, we lived together I did everything the opposite. It was like opposite day. I'm like, well, I did it this other way the first time, so I'm going to do it complete opposite this time. And then that didn't work. And I look at the statistics now, and basically, you have less than a 50% chance of any marriage surviving in today's society, And they say that, like, if you live together first, you're even less likely to stay married.
Huh.
Yeah. Things that you wouldn't normally expect. The other fascinating statistic that we had noticed while doing this podcast is that people who don't believe in God, whether they're, God speaking, whether they are agnostic or atheist, they have a better chance of surviving marriage than people who are affiliated with a religion.
I don't know why that makes sense to me, but it does. I can't justify that in any way. It's funny, like, you think back on marriage statistics that we had in like grade school, where like in World War II era, people were getting married like in their, late teens, early 20s, because people were going to go off to war, and people got married sooner. And then, as we became a more modern society, people waited a little bit longer to get married. And now I feel like I remember a couple years ago, it dropped back down, and now it's probably coming up again, or whatever it might be. But another reason that I get so worried about, marriage is that I have a couple of friends of mine in their 20s get married and divorced within a year. And I don't know how many people you've had on this show that have had a similar piece, but I can't imagine being, making a forever decision, and then a year later, just like, I never want to see you again. Or it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
But just being out of love or out of whatever. And that terrifies me, because, one Christmas you're forever, and then before you know it, it's just not there anymore. And that scares me. It really does.
Right. Well, one of the things that you had mentioned is your mom and dad, they separated when you were by 2, but they had a great relationship. How do you see that as a great relationship? Like, did they remain friendly after the fact, or how did that work?
I don't know if I'd say a great relationship, but like definitely like they had a good relationship. They were fine. They were great. I think it's one of the reasons that they were so young. My father was probably 23 or 24. My mom was like 18 or 19. So they were super young. So, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying, is that, I was born, soon after. So like, it was like, I don't know if they were good just for me or whatever it might be, but they were always had a fine relationship. But I don't look at them as like the pillar of relationships. Like I can't imagine in my own head them being a couple, being together anytime. And then my mother got remarried when she was like 30. Her and my stepfather were 30, and they've been together for 20 plus years. So, it obviously worked out on that end. But it's tough, because I think back to when I was, 19, and I think back on the people I dated at that time. And if it ever got past like, a certain period of time, like I would be like, oh, this is forever. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. Now in my 30s, I'm like, all right, can I take them to a baseball game? Are they going to be able to handle this? Like my expectation of like what's next changes.
Yeah. So, all right. So looking at your fear of getting divorced and the devastation of that, what would make you feel solid in a relationship, and what would make you feel willing to take that step with somebody?
That's an amazing question. And that's something I ask myself constantly. Like, I don't know what I'm looking for or what I want. You know what I mean? Because it's like, what do I? There was a period of time, Billy Joel. I'm a big Billy Joel fan, and he had a quote. Well, he's been divorced 3 times, and he's on his 4th marriage. Maybe not the best person to go to, but he has a quote that's saying competency turns him on, intelligence turns him on, and I'm like, that makes a ton of sense because I want someone that. I want a partner. Like that's what it comes down to. I want someone that's an equal. I don't have the stereotypical, provider, providee kind of thing. No, I want someone that's a partner. I want to be able to share what I'm passionate about. Like if she doesn't give a crap about the Mets, maybe she's into ballet and I'll go see some ballet. And I think that it's just, I'm just trying to find out do I want a friend or does romance need to be way more important? I don't know. But I'm a big believer that when she's there, I'll know that I'm him and I'll know that she's her. And it hasn't happened yet. And maybe I need to go on those 3 dates, or maybe I need to, not be as afraid. It's a slow process because I've only been performing for a couple of years and I'm still, that's been an evolution. So maybe I just need a relationship evolution.
Interesting. Well, if you were to look at the evolution you've had with your podcast and performing, how is that similar to a relationship, or how could it be?
Well, I think to relate it to divorce, the performing was the first time I did stand up. It was okay. The second time was a disaster. And once you realize that when you're on stage and it's going miserably and it cannot get any worse, you realize that it can't get any worse. So using it in those terms, I like the idea that if you could survive divorce, you can survive anything, because I can't imagine anything being worse than that, where, like I said, everything kind of, it crumbles around that. So in the 4 years I've been doing stand up, the 5.5 years I've been doing the show, you realize there's going to be ups and downs. But once you realize that there's a basement, it makes you try to reach for the ceiling. So that's when I think about it a lot. But relationship wise, I just haven't gotten there yet because I think I'm just so afraid of being rejected that it kind of puts a mute on what I'm looking for.
Hmm. I love how you compared that to stand up, and you're right. I think after divorce, it's like, how bad can a relationship be? I mean, this is just dating. Okay, so you're a jerk. Fine, I can get out of this. I mean, I already used the same attorney twice, so so yeah, there is that. And that is a really good analogy though, because I mean, if you bomb in one relationship and survive, you could probably, get through a lot more, or a lot more bad dates. But I think also too, what you hit on was like the first time you got up and did stand up, it was okay. And the second time was a disaster. And what happened the third time?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. It took me about a month to get back on stage. But once I did, it all kind of blurs together again. And it's about really putting yourself back in the position to be on stage again and put yourself in the danger zone. And I think one of the reasons I'm so afraid of divorce is that I've never really had a bad breakup. Because if I had a true I'm in love with this person and we broke up relationship, I think I'd be less afraid to take a plunge again, knowing that I can survive and go through it again. But since a lot of my relationships, or even the most profound of my romantic relationships, have been, I don't want to say surface level, but they're not exactly, well below the iceberg. I'm afraid to, at this point in my life, all right, am I going to be a 33-year-old in puppy love? Like, am I prepared for that? I don't know if that's what love is. I don't know if it's just being able to send a text and say good morning. I don't know what to do or how to do that. And a lot of my stand up has to do with that because, when do you send a text? When do you don't? When do you call? When do you don't? Whatever it might be. But having not experienced that, Michael J. Fox breaking up with Tracy Pollan on Family Ties.
I love the references. You're killing me.
But having not experienced that, I just don't know what that is. And my go-to is like High Fidelity, and it's all pop culture. My understanding of love is the romantic comedies that I watch, and that's probably not helpful either.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us when we look at dating, we want it to be new and exciting all of the time. We want to always have those butterflies in our stomach and be excited and have those series of first dates. And it's almost like because of the pop culture and because of the movies, we want our real life to be like that. And that's not what real life always is. Like real life is going to the grocery store, getting your laundry done, waking up and looking like crap. It's real. And so I totally hear what you're saying. And that's just interesting because, when we think of, I guess what I'm kind of learning and then hearing you, I'm like, yeah, real life is just, it's different because it's not about doing things right or wrong. It's about being and about incorporating somebody into the everyday. It's like the little things that matter. And we keep coming back to that, like in every episode. It's weird. Yeah.
Because I don't like, and you guys are saying that, I'm thinking, like, I don't want to fall in love. I want to be in love.
Yeah.
So I don't want the work of falling in love and I don't know, like, should I call her? It's 10 o'clock. Is that too late? I really want to go to this pizza place, but I don't want to go alone. But we've only been out a couple of times. Is it too far? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want the falling in love process. That seems like that labor seems, and it's probably the best part, but that's the unknowing, and that is a scary part of it. I want to be in love. I want to get past that and have the Netflix on a Saturday night and have we're going to go pick out produce and, she likes, past ripe bananas and not, you know what I mean? Like, I want to have those pieces. I want to be in the foundational piece. The building the foundation is the work part. And that's, and that's scary.
Right. Well, that's the exciting part. And two, I think a lot of times we want to skip all of the stuff and just get into a relationship and get into that comfort level where it feels safe once you're there. It's like, oh, thank God. Right. Like I'm over the hump. I have someone and it's totally safe, but there's a lot of work to be done. As exciting as the other stuff is, there's a lot of work that's involved in getting to the safe place.
Yeah. And, as I get older, I realize that, when I was younger, I felt like I had to do the work. Everyone knew that I met. I'd have to be like, all right, this is me. I like John Mayer. I like the Mets. I like the, and I'm like, I was feeling, after a while, I felt like I was doing a greatest hits record.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, this is who I am. This is what I want right now. But I'm still trying to find out 5 years from now. I'm still trying to find out 10 years from now. But this is who I am right now. I just want to eat some pizza and get to know you a little bit too.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what like a podcast is. The first time I talk to people, like I said, I've had over 300 people on the show, and so that's a lot of first dates.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of first dates. So again, I wish I had recorded some of these first dates because I feel like it'd be super interesting to look back at. But that's something that I realized that I'm really good at. Getting to know someone initially, because that's what the podcast has taught me. You're like, all right, where are you from? This is what do you do? Blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of what a first date is. It's that second date. It's like, all right, where do we go from here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's when the work starts. And in any relationship, work, it takes work every day. It takes a conscious effort to make a relationship work. And I guess if you look at it like work, that's not so fun and that sounds terrible. So, but it takes effort. That's a better term. I think it takes effort every day. There has to be a conscious effort into a relationship to make it successful. And the minute it just starts being taken for granted or something, that the relationship diminishes over time. It's like, how did that happen? How did we stop talking? How did we stop texting? How did we stop having dates? How did we stop? Because it gets into this level of comfort of like, oh, I'm here. Now we're good. And then it fizzles, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned, as a performer that I haven't learned in my real life yet is that there is no end.
Right.
So you can do, like, I think back at some of the, like, this cool stuff I've gotten to do. We've done quite a few DHAP live events over the years. and you spend so much time, planning and getting the venue and getting people to come and all that kind of good stuff. And you have a great show and you hang out afterwards. People are getting a cold beverage and you're hanging out and you go to bed that night and you wake up the next morning and it's like, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, you know what, I've done it and I've reached some level of internal nirvana. It's like, no, it's like, what is the next piece? And that's what I imagine a relationship is that it's not, it's not like, oh, you get married, this is great, achievement unlocked, and then you just like are partying for the next 45 years on a yacht. Like, that's not what marriage is.
It
like
should be. It really should be.
Like, I imagine the next day you wake up and it's like, all right, are we getting room service or are we getting the continental breakfast? Or you have to start making decisions immediately.
Yeah.
And that's not you don't see that in, Serendipity or, any name your romantic. You don't see that part of it.
No.
You just see the dancing and forever, happily ever after. But there are, thousands and thousands of days after that one day you get married.
Yeah, so true. And going back to performing, it's just like that. It's like, okay, so I had a great show last night and tons of laugh breaks and these jokes hit. And then the next time you don't just get up on stage and be like, hey, let me tell you what happened last night. You start all over again and then you have to insert some new jokes and try out new material and continue to be evolving, continue to be relevant, continue to make a difference, continue to be your best, continue to work towards making another person laugh. That's, to me, the same that I need to do in a relationship. To your point, is it's like, it's constant effort. You can't rely on, what you did in your successes of yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny that, someone put on social media a couple years ago that they wanted unconditional love. And for me, I don't want, I want conditional love. Like, if I'm a jerk, then kick me to the curb. Like, I want love with conditions. I want love that justifies me, being a decent human being and trying to make it together and all that kind of stuff. I think unconditional love is unrealistic. And, I think that also kind of shapes what I'm looking for is that, I don't want the, the castle and the peasants and the flowers and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want that. I want, something small and something, manageable and something that is just simple and is consistent. I don't want the highs and lows. I don't need the highs and lows. Like I said, like, it's like putting a fret bar on a guitar. Like, give me like muted highs and muted lows because I'm okay with that. And you want to have amazing days and all that kind of good stuff. But I don't want unconditional. I want conditional because I always want to be a decent person. And if I'm not a decent person, then you know what? I think I can understand them wanting to not be a part of it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point as well. If it's unconditional and you can get away with anything, what's the challenge in that too?
Right, exactly. Like, if I
get a dog. Seriously. I just the example you're giving me, I'm like, a dog, unconditional love. A cat, very conditional.
Yeah, and that makes all the sense in the world. Exactly. Because like, I've never cheated in a relationship, and I feel like that should build me some kind of equity. But you know what? The moment I did, my 33 years of faithfulness doesn't mean jack. You know what I mean? So you can be amazing for whatever, but you have one moment of infidelity or one moment of just yelling at a waiter for no reason. Like, that doesn't, it doesn't change. It changes everything because you've done it once now. And I just think being, a decent human being is it's a very difficult thing to do, to be a decent human being. And to find another decent human being, that's also a pretty big challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what would you say are your top what are like the 3 must-haves for you to be in a relationship with somebody?
I think humor is really important because I think being able to laugh and being able to connect with someone on that level just is a level of intelligence that I think matters. Like, have you been in a relationship with someone that doesn't have a sense of humor?
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, I think that's really tough, and not only because like that's kind of what we do, but I just think in general, like, you have to be able to be, maybe not lighthearted is the way to say it, but just be able to view life in a prism of, not in a vacuum in the context of everything else. Because I've been in a relationship with people, both platonic and romantic, that with people who see everything in a vacuum, and you show someone outside of the context of the world that they know, and it's like mind blowing. It's like, wait, you could put quarters into the dryer at the laundromat? It's like, yes, that's a thing that everybody does. Like, I don't understand how you don't know that. So it's one of those things. So I think humor is really important. I think compassion is incredibly important. And empathy, like just being a decent person, knowing that you can't help everyone in the world, but understanding that, everyone has their cross to bear. Michael J. Fox has this anecdote in one of his books. It's like I guess a religious thing or whatever. But essentially, God has everybody in the world around the big conference table. And one by one, everyone takes out a backpack and puts all their crap on a table. And one by one, everyone goes around. And at the end, you can take anyone else's crap for your own, and everyone takes their own back, because you don't realize what everyone else is dealing with. On the subway in New York City, which I know you know well, there are literally thousands of people that you indirectly interact with, and they each they're late for work. They're in a bad relationship. They had a bad sandwich. I don't know. The Mets lost last night. Whatever. Everyone's kind of going through their own thing. And I'm not saying you have to understand everyone's cross to bear, but you have to at least understand that exists. So humor and compassion. And the third one, I don't know. They have to want to be happy. And I think that's a decision. Like, as someone who's dealt with depression a lot in my life, and still do, I always do. I think trying to be happy is a conscious decision. It's not an easy decision to make. And it's not an easy decision to follow up on. But I think having a positive mindset and at least wanting to be happy, I think is so important, because there are people that are negative. There are people who, just aren't respectful of other people's time and things of that nature. But at least if you go at it, trying to be happy and trying to be positive, whether or not you're successful, at least wanted to make that decision, I think is very. I have a lot of respect for people who try to do that.
Yeah, as do I, and it's not easy, and especially if you're suffering from a form of depression too. And going back to your number one of humor, I find this interesting because when you ask, have you ever dated someone that doesn't have a sense of humor? I've had people, there's a spectrum, right? There are some people with amazing sense of humor and some people with a sense of humor, but not maybe quite like my own, or maybe not as much of a sense of humor as other people, right? So that's kind of interesting too, is I think most people have one. Is it just fitting into our own? And I noticed too, now being a performer, that's a whole different spirit of being as well when meeting normal people, as we like to call them.
The normies,
there's that too. But yeah, I think it's in like what you hit on, some really key things, having a sense of humor. And that's important in a relationship, because if you guys can find humor in things, you're going to probably get through quite a bit as a result, And,
well, that nonverbal communication, I think, is key. And I think back of the best relationships I've been in. It's like, if something like ridiculous is happening in the restaurant, in the subway, or whatever it might be, just making that eye contact and rolling your eyes together and having that private chuckle, I think is important. And I think back on dates I've been on where first dates that I try to have that moment. Like, I went on a first date years ago to this little Italian place in Little Italy, and I the little old Italian guy comes by with the accordion and he plays a song, and it's cute and it's great. It's a first date. It's nice. He plays a second song. He plays a third song. And I'm trying to laugh about the situation, but she is mortified. And I'm like, this is probably not going to work out, because to me, it was very funny. But for her, she was could not have been more mortified in the situation. Not the least of which is I forgot to bring cash, so I couldn't even give him a tip. I'm like, I have my credit. I just felt like the worst. So after playing 3 or 4 songs, and he's not going away because I can't give him money. And I can't give her eye contact to throw a couple bucks in. I knew, that's a first date where it's you know what? You're very nice, but I'm never going to see you again.
Yeah, he's like playing the whole best of hits album of Billy Joel. And you're like, I've got nothing.
Right, exactly. He's playing the accordion solo from Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. And I'm like, listen, I want to help you. Help me help you.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, and she was mortified. Oh no. Yeah. Those are moments that you want to look back and remember and be like, remember our first date when that guy with the accordion, he wouldn't go away. And, like, those are the things that you just want to recreate over and over again as you get older and through the years. So now that we know like what's important, what would be some deal breakers? I think I know number one for you because I know you're a Mets fan. So.
Listen, I went to a Yankee game on Sunday, and I've always considered myself as someone who's like, I love the Mets. I don't really care about but I'm on the train getting to the game, and there's just Yankee people everywhere, and I'm like, this is my darkest timeline. This is not a good situation. If she's a legit baseball fan and she's a Yankee fan, I think I can live with that. But as I get older, I'm trying to engage politically with people who are not the same with me ideologically. And I know there are a lot of people, there are many people out there that are in loving, romantic relationships and platonic relationships with people that don't share the same politics. I'm not sure. It depends on the level of, but I think, having a same worldview, I think is incredibly important. Yeah. I think someone who's just like, is not nice to people. Like, I'm a big believer of holding a door open for someone, saying please and thank you. For someone who just feels entitled on some level, I don't think I can be in on with. And someone who's accepting. And it doesn't mean they don't have to agree with me loving baseball and sports and, Billy Joel and John Mayer or whatever. But if they, are, standoffish about it, like that kind of stinks. Because you don't have to love John Mayer, and you can think he was kind of mean to Taylor Swift. I'm not sure I disagree with that. But you have to appreciate what it means to me, or at least be able to listen to why it's important to me. You don't have to agree, but you just have to understand. That's all I ask. Right. I think the biggest thing is I don't want to be with a jerk. I think that would suck. I want someone who's a decent human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You want someone who's going to treat you with respect and appreciate you for all of your likes and dislikes. Whether they agree or not is an entirely different story, but someone who can at least appreciate you for having those feelings one way or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. So you've never been married. You've never been engaged, right?
No.
But yet, and your parents have had good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you've seen some of your friends marry later in life at 40, which is exciting. So when you think about this fear that you have about getting too close and basically what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that like you're learning to be vulnerable on stage and the rewards that comes with that, right? Over time, as you evolve as a performer and build a better relationship with your audiences, and you're seeing how that works. When you're looking at your relationships and stuff, what do you see you doing different as you move forward? Keeping in mind that you have this fear of going through divorce. Like, what do you see yourself doing different? What are you learning?
I think transparency is like really important, and I'm pretty honest with my fears both on stage and off. Listen, I'm not going to a first date saying like, listen, if we get to the point of getting engaged and married, like I don't want to get divorced. Like I'm not saying that on a first date. I'm not putting those cards out there. That'd be super weird. But it's funny because like I'm an only child, and that might have something to do with it. I need my damn show. Dennis has a podcast, so it's hard to put, Dennis has a podcast and another person. So like I'm a very, individual starter kind of person. So I'm always like, I don't need another person to do this relationship or this show or whatever. I can do this on my own. But I think the best times when I'm on stage, or the best response I get from episodes, is when I'm just very honest and very transparent about things. So if I'm on stage, like I'll talk about, like, so on stage, like, recently one of my good friends, he got married last year. His wife is pregnant, and they bought a house on Long Island, and they're doing the whole thing. And like on stage, I'm like, I'm happy for them. And on some level, I am happy for them. I really am. I love them. They're wonderful people. But the other part of it is like, and I go through my own idiosyncrasies with it. I was at a wedding a couple weeks ago, and I'm happy for the couple. But the last place I wanted, it got to a point in this at the reception where the last place I wanted to be in the world was at that reception. I'm happy for them, but I felt less than. Because it's me and my podcast, and no one's throwing me a $50,000 wedding for that. So it's the idea of if I'm on stage, and it's about having a conversation. Because I have jokes, I have material, but I think the best stuff is like, I do this joke, people react, and I'm just going to connect with the audience and ask them questions and iterate whatever it might be. I've been on stage asking people like, what should the next date be? Should I take them to go get ice cream? Whatever it might be. It's about making that connection with people, and I think I'm good at that. But even in friendships and even on Facebook or whatever else, I always feel like I have one foot out the door, and I'm just never building that connection with people, and that's really hard. So I'm as honest as I can be. Because no one's ever going to be 100% honest, but I think being honest and transparent, people connect with that. And that's where I build some of my best relationships, because that's, like I was saying before, and like we've both been saying this whole episode, it's not easy, being a decent person. It's not easy being open. It's not easy being kind. It's difficult. But if you're honest and transparent, there's only one way to go. And that's a good thing, because it's a challenge, and you don't get it from everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of no one throwing you a $50,000 party for you in the podcast.
Well, I said this a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, listen, if I have to go to your wedding, you have to come to my live podcast taping. I think it's only fair.
But what if you meet a woman and she has, I don't know, she has a business. What if she has, what if she has a computer business, right? And it's Sarah has a computer. And what if Sarah has a computer and Dennis has a podcast, and you guys come together in a union? Like, could that work?
That would be beautiful. It would be an amazing thing. The one thing I try not to close myself off of any, like, Dennis, what's your type? I'm like, I don't know what my type is. Like, I've dated really short women. I've dated really tall women. I've dated, women younger than me. I've dated women older than me. Like, I like to think that it could be anyone of any creed, color, race, gender, whatever. It could be any. When you fall in love, you fall in love. And I think the one thing that I'm okay with is that I'm open to whatever presents itself.
Yeah.
And for me, for the most, for me, it's, it's been, a train of, short-term like things, but you have to be open, and that's not easy. And it's not something I say I practice all the time, but it's what I aim for. And it's what I try to be, because you don't know, in my ideal, brain, they're, maybe this height or this or whatever, and then they don't have kids and they haven't been divorced or they don't smoke or whatever. But I can fall in love with someone who's been divorced 5 times and has 2 kids and smokes 4 packs a day and drinks, and I don't drink or smoke, or you know what I mean. So it's just like, but it could be that person, and like I like to think that I don't necessarily have control over that. It's not a decision. But it's who you are.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is like, because you like have your podcast and you have your stand up and your things that you're doing. And it's almost like, do I have room in my life for a particular person? Like, how am I going to make that work? Right. Because you've committed to these other things for sure, because they're not going to be able to hurt you. So when another person comes into your life, are you going to feel better knowing that that person has their podcast or that person has their thing and you unite the two? Or do you feel like you'd be better with someone coming in and being a part of yours?
I mean, that's really interesting. I want someone that, I'm a big believer that you need to be independent of each other on some level, because the full total codependency thing, I'm not sure I'm mentally prepared for. So yeah, I would want her to be part of DHAP. I would want to be part of her computer business. Like I want her to come to Mets games. I want to go to her Dave Matthews Band concerts. But then I also want to, like, do some stuff that I want to do. Like, I don't go to museums enough. She doesn't go to museums enough. So we go to the Natural History Museum on a week. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
I want to be a combination of, I want to take her into my world. I want to go into her world, but I also want to have some things that are our things too, that are independent of each other. So yeah, I mean, when it's the right person, I want them to be a part of it, whether it's, a romantic relationship or even like a business partnership. That's something I'm still hesitant towards, because it's my name, it's my whatever. It's tough to share. Maybe it's my only childness, but the willingness to do that is growing. And I think 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 days ago, I don't think I would have been as willing. But as I get older, I get a little bit more willing, and I think it's an ever evolving process.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have one final question for you, because I love talking to you about this, because especially knowing that, you think about divorce a lot, and the fact that you've never been in it. If there was no divorce, if it was a guarantee that a relationship would last forever once you fell in love with somebody, how likely would you be to do that?
So am I going to be in love the whole time, or am I?
Yeah. What if there's no chance or risk of you getting hurt or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think I'd be able to jump in on that. I would like to think I'd be able to make that decision. But I'm not the kind of person, and maybe you can back me up on this, or maybe you can't. Either way. But the idea of, like, you go to the ice cream shop and there's 100 flavors, and you get, the chocolate peanut butter cup because you love chocolate and peanut butter, and then you're walking out of the store and someone leaves with an ice cream cake. And then I'm like, wait, I should have gotten an ice cream cake. And as much as I love my chocolate peanut butter ice cream, I rather than enjoying the ice cream, I'm living the what if. And that's a mental thing I need to get over. Because once you jump into the lake, you made your decision. You can't leave the lake. You're there. So you're got to be there. So the one thing about being single, it's like, you know what? I'm open to anything. All right, this person comes along, great, whatever. But by jumping in, you're taking yourself. By jumping in the pool, by jumping in the lake, you're taking yourself out of the pool. And that's, I think I'm getting closer and closer to being okay with that. But as a decision maker in life, I just need to stop thinking about the what if and just live in the moment in my own life, which is difficult for me to do. But as I'm saying the words, I just need to do it.
Interesting. So just to make sure I'm hearing this clear, if there was a way that that in this world that I'm making up right now, that you could fall in love and be totally okay without getting hurt, and you could fall in love with one person for the rest of your life, you wouldn't be sure you could do it, because there would always be that what if there's an ice cream cake out there for me, right?
I mean, if you're telling me I didn't have to worry about that,
yeah,
then I would do it in a second.
Okay. Because otherwise I was going to say, well, fortunately for you, Mr. Dennis, there is a world where you can get out of it, and it's called divorce. Welcome to the other side, because that's what happens in about 50% of the marriages.
Well, and that's like that's the greater point, or the greater thing that I think is so interesting, is that, when having been through that twice and knowing people who have been through it before, it's not something I can understand. Like, I'll listen and I'll be curious and I'll ask questions, but I don't have a frame of reference. Mm-hmm. It's like someone who's been through cancer, or who's been through just some major life event that I just don't have an equivalent for. So I can be interested and empathetic, but I can't say, that one time, I bought that hamburger, but they put extra mayo on it, and I don't like mayo. And then I brought it back, and they didn't give me a refund, and I just never went there again. That's kind of like a divorce, right? And it's like, no. I have no frame. So I can't bring it on myself at all. So it's just like, you know what? If it's not working, divorce, it doesn't have to be a double turnkey. What my understanding is, both people don't have to turn the key. If one person's out, you're out.
Yeah.
And that's, and I think that's, an interesting piece of it. And there's different reasons for divorce. It could be, it could be a lack of connection. It could be a falling out of love. It could be, something more serious than that. But it is good to know, going back to the unconditional love. Like, if you're a jerk, as much as I love you, I don't have to spend the rest of my life in, sadness or fear or anger or whatever it might be. I love you enough to let you go and live my life. So that's having that fail safe, I think, is an important piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been interesting talking to you.
It usually is.
I know. This is so true. We always have really good conversations. And I don't think we've really talked about your dating life and stuff like that before.
And that's
like this.
And that's what I love about what you do is that, when Mark was on the show a couple months ago, I listened to that, and I've known Mark for 5 years now. Mm-hmm. I had no idea about anything that happened. Nothing. I had no idea about any of that. And I love what you're doing with this, because it's a different, the one thing I wish my show was more focused and niche and really kind of focused on one piece. And you're doing a great job with it. You're funny and talented and a motivated person. And, whether it was, doing the mics in the city and the casual mic, whatever it might be. Whenever I see a loose mitten in the street, I think of Leanne Linsky. So you're crushing it. So I'm very flattered to be a novice in the divorce world, but to talk about this kind of stuff.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate it, and I love talking to you about what's going on in your life and getting to know you even better. And it's really cool to get a different perspective of somebody who hasn't been married and yet worries about divorce. The boyfriend's also going to appreciate that too, because right now he's the only one on the show that's that way.
And I love the fact that he's unnamed. A friend of mine, Emily, who's done the show a bunch. Her then boyfriend became then fiance, who's now husband. And I think we've mentioned his name on the show maybe once. Mm-hmm. For whatever the reason, I love not naming him on the show. I mean, I think it's very funny. And so I think that's a wonderful touch. And we got to have you back on my show. I think you've been on twice.
Yeah.
And it's been a couple of years, so we got to have you back.
I would love that. That would be fantastic. So thank you so much. And I will let you go, and we will talk again very soon.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thanks.